The Pilgrim's Journey. Hey everyone, tonight we're embarking on something truly special. Something slow and sacred and utterly exhausting in the most peaceful way imaginable. We're going to walk, no, not walk. We're going to drift back through 900 years of history to the year 1000. Imagine the world as it was then, a world without the hum of electricity or the rush of engines. A world where the horizon was a mystery and the stars were the only map. In this year 1100, the Holy Land was a distant dream wrapped in layers of incense, prayer, and peril. It was a golden light on the edge of the mind, a place where the physical earth met the edge of heaven. The roads then were not paths of convenience, but ribbons of white dust and ancient stone that stretched beyond the limit of sight. The seas were not merely water, but vast, breathing entities of turquoise and charcoal, unpredictable and deep. In this age, a pilgrimage meant more than a journey. It meant a social death. It meant leaving behind the hearth, the family name, and the safety of the known world for a destination you might never actually touch with your hands. So settle in. Feel the mattress beneath you become as solid and supportive as the earth itself. Let your shoulders drop. Let the weight of the day fall away like a heavy wool-woven cloak slipping from tired shoulders. The kind of cloak a traveler would shed after a day of walking under the Mediterranean sun. Tonight, you're not watching the clock. The seconds and minutes that usually tether you to the modern world are dissolving. You're not worrying about tomorrow. In the year 1100, tomorrow was a gift, not a guarantee. Tonight, you're a pilgrim. Your only duty is to move forward, and the journey is long. It is miles upon miles of swaying grass, of rocky mountain passes, and of quiet nights spent under a canopy of stars that felt close enough to touch. And that length, that vast distance, that's exactly what we need. Take a slow breath in, breathing in the cool, damp air of a medieval morning, and out. Let the world around you soften and blur. The edges of your room are fading, replaced by the soft gray light of a dawn in the 11th century. Because we're about to step into a life where time moved differently. It didn't tick, it flowed. Where a journey could take months, even years. Think of that, months of the same rhythmic pace. Where the rhythm of your days was measured not by deadlines, but in the steady thrum of footsteps on Roman-built roads, in the chanting of the litany of the saints, and in the slow, majestic turning of the seasons from the biting winds of the mountain passes to the searing, dry heat of the Levanto. Close your eyes if you'd like. Let the lids grow heavy, weighted by the peaceful exhaustion of a traveler who has seen the sun rise over a dozen different kingdoms. There's no rush. There is no destination we must reach tonight. There never is a rush on a pilgrimage. The merit is in the walking, not just the arriving. The air is still. The fire in the hearth is a low orange glow. The world is waiting. Part 1. The decision. It starts, as so many things do, with a feeling. A restlessness. A pull you can't quite name. Like the migration of birds or the turning of the tides. It isn't a sudden bolt of lightning, but a slow-growing warmth in the chest. A quiet voice that speaks in the silences between your daily chores. You're standing in the doorway of your small home, a cottage of timber and wattle and daub, in a village nestled somewhere in the rolling green heart of France. Perhaps near the limestone cliffs of Lyon, or the cathedral shadows of Tours, or someplace even smaller, a hamlet whose name has long since been swallowed by the moss and the centuries. The year is 1099, turning toward 1100. Outside, the autumn light is failing, stretching long, violet shadows across the fields. Everything is cast in a wash of soft gold. The air is thick and comforting. It smells of blue wood smoke rising from thatched roofs, of the damp, metallic scent of turned earth, and the sweet, fermented musk of the final harvest. It is a season of ending things. You've heard the stories. In the marketplace, by the communal well, in the hushed whispers after Mass. Everyone has. Stories of Jerusalem, the Hierosolyma, retaken by Christian knights just last year after decades of being held by the Saracens. To the people of your village, Jerusalem isn't just a city on a map. It is the center of the world, the navel of the earth. It is the holy city where Christ's feet pressed into the dust, where he was crucified, buried, and where the stone was rolled away from the tomb. You imagine the very ground there must hum with power. The stones remember his shadow. The air there must taste of cedar and miracles. And you want to see it. No, you need to see it. No, you absolutely must see it. The feeling has been ripening for months, ever since the first ragged messengers reached your village with news of the Crusaders' victory at the Holy Sepulchre. It's not a hunger for glory or the sharp edge of adventure. It is something quieter, deeper, a spiritual gravity, atonement maybe, for the small cruelties of a lifetime, or grace, or simply the bone-deep certainty that your soul requires this journey, the way your body requires the coarseness of brown bread. You feel as though your life here, in this small circle of fields, is a garment that has become too tight. You've spoken to the priest, Father Anselm, a man whose hands are calloused from the parish garden and whose vestments bear the faint, purple stains of sacramental wine. He listened to you in the dim, cool silence of the stone church, nodding slowly as the shadows of the saints watched from the walls. He told you that pilgrimage is a peregrinatio, a sacred exile, a way to wash the spirit clean, to earn the indulgences that shorten the souls, stay in the fires of purgatory, and to draw closer to the divine. But his voice held the weight of a warning too. He spoke of the great road, the long, grueling path through the Alps and down to the ports of Italy or the dust of Byzantium. He spoke of bandits lurking in the mountain mists, of sudden, churning storms at sea that can snap a mast like a dry twig. He spoke of the pestis, the sickness that blooms in crowded camps, and the gnawing ache of hunger when the satchel runs dry. Many who take the cross and the staff never return to see the apple trees bloom again. You know this. You feel the truth of it in your marrow. But the knowing doesn't change the pull. It only makes the air in your lungs feel more precious. So, the die is cast. You've made your decision. You will depart in the spring, when the iron grip of the frost thaws, when the roads dry into hard-packed clay, and the high mountain passes clear of their white shrouds. You have months to prepare, months to settle your small affairs, to ensure the cow is sold or tended, to say the slow, heavy goodbyes to faces you may never see again. The nights grow longer now, the darkness pressing against the shutters. Winter is coming, wrapping the village in a silver-gray silence. You sit by the fire in the evenings, the hearth smoke curling toward the rafters. Your primary task is mending the cloak you'll take. A sturdy, heavy wool garment, dyed a humble dark brown. It is already patched in places, smelling faintly of lanolin and old winters. Your fingers work with a slow, hypnotic rhythm. The needle, polished by use, catches the orange firelight with every pass. Pierce, pull, tighten. The flames flicker and dance, casting your shadow large against the wall. Outside, the winter wind whispers through the bare, skeletal branches of the apple trees, a cold oration of things to come. Your family is not happy. There's a quietness at the table, a heaviness in the way they pass the salt, but they understand. This is the language of your time, the language of penance and the shimmering promise of salvation. Your mother, her face lined like a map of the parish, presses a small wooden cross into your palm one evening. It belonged to her mother, and her mother before her. Its edges are worn smooth, polished to a glass-like finish by generations of worried thumbs seeking comfort in prayer. She says nothing. The words are too heavy, but her eyes are damp, reflecting the dying embers of the fire. You have very little to bring. That is the essence of the pilgrim, the pauper Christi. You go as Christ did, unburdened by the weight of possessions, relying on the charity of strangers and the providence of the birds. But a few things are essential. The cloak, to shield you from the mountain rains. A sturdy staff of seasoned oak, tall and straight, useful for leaning your weight during the uphill climbs, for testing the treacherous depth of spring streams, and for discouraging the lean, hungry dogs of the road. You prepare a small leather pouch for the few silver deniers you've managed to scrape together, coins earned through sweat and patience. A simple wooden bowl and a carved horn spoon. A leather water flask cured with beeswax. A small knife, utility sharp but humble. You are a man of peace, a traveler under the protection of the church. And most important, the scallop shell, the coquille Saint-Jacques. It is the mark of the pilgrim, a symbol of the many paths that lead to a single point. You don't have one yet. Perhaps you'll find one cast up by the tide on a distant shore, or trade a prayer for one at a wayside shrine. When you eventually fasten it to your hat or hang it from a cord around your neck, it will tell the world who you are. It marks you as a holy traveler, someone who, in theory, is under a divine truce, protected from the violence of lords and the greed of thieves by the invisible shield of your vow. The winter passes with agonizing slowness. You work, you pray, you prepare. The village settles into its deep, cold rhythm. Snow falls, blanketing the world in a muffled white peace, then melts into slush, then falls again. You attend Mass each Sunday, kneeling on the freezing stone floor of the nave. You listen to the priest intone the Latin, in nomen patris, et filii, et spiritus sancti, words you don't fully understand with your mind, but which you feel in your soul, heavy and solemn, like a thick wool blanket, keeping the cold world at bay. And then, at long last, the air changes. The scent of melting ice and wet stone fills the breeze. The first green shoots of the snowdrops pierce the soil. Spring has arrived, and with it, the road. Part 2. Departure. The morning you finally leave is cool and clear, the air tasting of silver and ancient stone. The sky is a pale, fragile blue, like the shell of a robin's egg. A thick, white dawn mist still clings to the low-lying fields, wrapping the haystacks and the sleeping cattle in a soft, woolly silence. It makes everything look unreal, like a memory that is already forming even as you live through it. Your village, which has been the boundary of your entire world, looks different in this light, smaller, quieter, already beginning to recede into the fog. You've said your goodbyes. They were heavy, lingering things. There were tears, your mother's mostly, falling onto your woolen shoulder as she held you one last time. Your father's eyes were red and rimmed with a pride. He couldn't speak when he finally turned away to look at the horizon. Your siblings hugged you tight, their young hands grasping at your cloak as if to anchor you to the hearth. The neighbors, too, came to the gate, bringing small, precious offerings of crusty rye bread and hard sheep's cheese wrapped in linen cloth. These are the last flavors of home you will know for a very long time. Father Anselm blessed you in the dim nave of the church, his voice echoing off the rafters, steady and warm, as he made the sign of the cross over your bowed head. The smell of old incense and floor rushes seemed to settle into your skin, a spiritual armor for the miles ahead. And now you're walking, just walking, away from the well where you drew water, away from the fields you plowed, away from everything you know. The village falls behind you, step by rhythmic step. You don't look back. There is an old superstition among travelers, a quiet warning whispered by the elders. Never look back when the journey begins, lest your heart lose its courage and your feet grow heavy with longing. Forward is the only direction that matters now. The road ahead is your new reality. The road is narrow, a ribbon of earth rutted with the deep tracks of ox carts and the many hooves of the spring fair. It is lined with hedgerows, hawthorn and blackthorn, still mostly bare from the winter's bite, but showing the first tentative whispers of green. If you look closely, you can see the buds swelling, ready to burst. Birds sing in the dense undergrowth. They are testing their voices, short melodic bursts that puncture the morning stillness. Your staff, that sturdy length of ash, taps a steady, hypnotic rhythm against the packed earth. Thump, scuff, thump. Your feet are wrapped in simple leather boots, sturdy and worn, stuffed with dry straw to cushion the soles and provide warmth against the lingering damp of the soil. They find their pace, a steady gait that is neither too fast nor too slow. It is the pace of the long-distance traveler, a walk that can be sustained from sunrise until the stars begin to peer through the gloaming. You're not alone, you realize after an hour of walking. The Great Road is a living thing, a vein of humanity stretching across the continent. There is a merchant ahead, his donkey laden with heavy panniers of salt or perhaps fine cloth, heading toward the markets of the next great town. You pass an old woman walking slowly, leaning heavily on a gnarled stick, her eyes fixed on the ground, traveling toward a local shrine, or perhaps just drifting with the tide of the road. And there, yes, there in the shimmering distance you see them, other pilgrims. You can tell them by the way they carry themselves, the specific slant of their staffs, the heavy square packs on their backs, the way they move with a quiet, singular purpose. Some already wear the scallop shell, their hats or cloaks adorned with the white, ribbed symbol that marks them as veterans of the road. Others, like you, are just beginning. You are the green pilgrims, still collecting the dust of your first province, your cloak still clean, your spirit still bright with the novelty of the path. By the time the sun reaches its zenith, you've fallen into step with a small, mismatched group. There's a man about your age named Pierre. He's from a village in Burgundy, and he speaks with a rolling accent that tastes of grapes and limestone. There is a middle-aged woman named Mathilde, traveling alone with a fierce, quiet determination. Her face is weathered like an old glove, and she carries a rosary of wooden beads that clack softly against her hip. And then there is Bertrand, an older man who walks with a distinct limp, but smiles often, his eyes crinkling into a map of 1,000 miles. He tells stories of the road, of great cathedrals and miraculous springs, to pass the long, dusty miles. You don't talk much at first. There's a strange, sacred intimacy in walking together. It is a companionship born of shared sweat and common dust, a friendship that doesn't require the clutter of words. You simply move, step after step after step. The sun climbs to the top of the sky, warming your back, and then begins its slow, majestic descent toward the west. The landscape unfolds around you like a tapestry being unrolled. Emerald fields giving way to deep, ancient forests where the road winds through cool, mossy shadows and the air smells of damp ferns and decaying leaves. When evening finally draws its blue veil over the world, you stop at a village. There's a monastery here, a small stone sanctuary with a gated courtyard. The monks, following the rule of Saint Benedict, take in pilgrims as an act of holy charity. In the refectory, you are given a bowl of thick pottage, a hunk of dark bread, and a mug of thin, cool ale. You find a spot on the straw-covered floor of the pilgrim's hall, huddled among dozens of other travelers. The hall is dim and smoky, lit by a few guttering tallow candles and the low, red glow of a central hearth. It is warm, a communal warmth of many bodies resting together. You eat slowly, savoring every crumb, feeling a profound gratitude for the simple act of sitting still. Your feet ache with a dull, throbbing heat. You're not used to this yet, this relentless, daily pounding. But there's a deep satisfaction in the ache. It is a physical sign of progress. It is the price of the miles. That night, lying on the packed earth floor with your heavy wool cloak pulled up to your chin, you listen to the soft, rhythmic snoring of your fellow pilgrims and the distant, muffled chanting of the monks in the chapel as they sing the office of Compline. You think about how far you've come already. One day, just one single day, and already your village feels like a dream from another lifetime. The face of your mother is a fading image. The smell of your own hearth is a distant memory. How many more days until you see the golden walls of Jerusalem? You don't know. No one truly knows. Weeks, certainly. Months, likely. Perhaps half a year or more, if the grace of God holds. If you don't fall prey to the fever of the marshes. If you're not waylaid by the desperate men who haunt the forests, if the cogs are running from the ports of Marseille or Brindisi, and the Mediterranean remains a calm, blue mirror. But you're not thinking about the ifs tonight. You are too tired for worry. It is the deep, honest tiredness that comes from a day well used, from movement with a holy purpose. As the last candle is snuffed out, and the hall falls into a velvet darkness, sleep comes easily. It is deep, heavy, and dreamless, like sinking into the cool, dark waters of a mountain lake. Part 3. The long road south. Days blur into weeks, and weeks begin to dissolve into a singular, unending state of being. Walking is no longer something you do. It has become your life, your whole world, your very identity. The rhythm of the road gets into your bones, settling into the marrow like a slow-burning fire. Your existence has narrowed down to a simple holy cycle. Rise with the first gray light of dawn. Eat whatever scraps remain in your scrip, or whatever charity the morning provides, and walk. You walk until the sun reaches its zenith. Rest briefly in the shade of a wayside oak. Walk until the dusk turns the world to charcoal. Find a corner of shelter. Sleep. And repeat. The repetition is its own kind of prayer. Step, breath, staff. Step, breath, staff. You're heading south, always south, drawn by an invisible thread toward the towering spine of the Alps, toward the sun-drenched plains of Italy, and eventually toward the great, salt-scented mystery of the sea. The group you're traveling with is like a river, constantly moving, growing and shrinking as pilgrims join and leave like water flowing through your fingers. Pierre is still with you, his burgundy accent a familiar comfort in the morning air. Mathilde is there too, her pace steady and her silence profound. But others have faded away. Bertrand, the old man with a smile, left you at a bustling market town near Lyon. His weathered leg could no longer promise him the steep ascent of the mountain passes. You said goodbye with a firm clasp of hands, a silent acknowledgement of shared miles, and a prayer whispered into the dusty air. On the road, every hello is shadowed by the certainty of a goodbye. The landscape changes with the agonizing slowness of a shifting tide. The gentle, rolling hills of your youth have been replaced by a more rugged terrain. The forests grow thicker here, the shadows beneath the ancient pines deeper and more secretive. You pass through towns that feel like different worlds. Some are welcoming, their gates open, the smell of fresh hops and roasting meat wafting from the taverns. In one such village, a baker with flour-dusted arms saw your pilgrim's staff and handed you a loaf of yesterday's bread. It was hard as a river stone, but when dipped in a cup of spring water, it tasted like a feast. In other places, the atmosphere is sharp and wary. Dogs bark with a hungry ferocity, and children, their faces smudged with soot, throw stones from the safety of alleyways. In those places, you don't linger. You pull your hood low, tighten your grip on your staff, and hurry through until the walls are far behind you. There are dangers, lurking like ghosts in the periphery. You hear the stories during the quiet hours of the evening, pass from traveler to traveler like a dark currency. A group of pilgrims robbed 3 days north by men with notched swords and desperate eyes. A woman, a weaver from the coast, who fell sick with a sudden burning fever and died by the roadside, her journey ending in an unmarked grave beneath a hawthorn tree. You hear of wolves in the deep woods, great gray shadows that howl at the moon, though you haven't seen them, only their tracks in the soft mud of the riverbanks. And then there are the bandits, the men of the forest who prey on the pious, knowing that even the poorest pilgrim usually carries a few silver coins for passage or bread. You've learned the wisdom of the road now. You travel only during the golden hours of the day and stay well hidden at night. You have learned to sleep lightly, the kind of sleep where your ears are always open to the snap of a twig. Your small pouch of coins is no longer in your pack. It is tucked deep inside your tunic, pressed against your skin, warmed by your own heartbeat. You have developed a traveler's instinct. an inner compass that helps you judge a stranger in a single glance, knowing who possesses a kind heart and who carries a hidden blade. But mostly, despite the fear and the fatigue, you just walk. The world is so much bigger, so much more terrifyingly vast than you ever imagined in the small circle of your village. Your home, your valley, the stream where you fished as a child. It was everything to you once. Now, you see it for what it truly is, a single humble thread in a vast, sprawling tapestry of kingdoms and cultures. You walk through regions where the language shifts and bends, where the bread is seasoned with strange seeds, and where the churches are built with soaring, pointed arches that you have no names for. Each day is a slow, walking lesson in the immensity of creation. Spring has deepened into the heavy, golden warmth of early summer. The air is thick with the scent of sun-warmed grass and pine resin. Wildflowers have reclaimed the ditches along the road. Poppies that look like vivid drops of blood against the green. And cornflowers the exact startling blue of the Virgin Mary's robe in a stained glass window. You sleep outside more often now, finding a soft patch of clover or a bed of dry needles under the stars. You spread your heavy cloak, lie on your back and watch the night sky wheel slowly overhead. A great silent clock of stars that has watched pilgrims pass for 1,000 years. There is something hypnotic about it. This endless movement. Your mind begins to empty of its modern clutter, or perhaps it fills with the landscape. You're not entirely sure which. Hours pass where you think of nothing but the next step. The way the light filters through the canopy of leaves, or the smooth, worn feel of the ashwood in your palm. Sometimes, memories surface unbidden, rising like bubbles in a well. Your mother's face as she kneaded dough, the cold snap of a winter morning in your youth, a snatch of a song you heard once at a village fair. And prayers, so many prayers, they become part of your stride. The Paternoster, the Ave Maria. You whisper them under your breath, over and over, until the words lose their literal meaning and become just sound, just a rhythmic vibration, a bridge between your breath and the divine. One evening, as the sun begins to dip behind the jagged peaks to the south, you reach a monastery larger than any cathedral you could have dreamed of. It is a great stone complex, perched like a crown on a hillside, surrounded by rolling vineyards and silver-leafed orchards. The monks here are famous across Christendom for their hospitality. They have built a great hall specifically for travelers, filled with the scent of fresh straw and clean linen. You stay for 2 days, a rare, precious Sabbath for your body. You let your blistered, calloused feet heal in the cool air. You attend the services in the monastery's great vaulted church, standing in the back with 100 other pilgrims. You listen to the monks chant the Gregorian tones in their high, clear voices. The music doesn't just fill the room. It seems to soak into the stone walls, rising upward toward the vaulted ceiling, like smoke from a holy fire. On the second evening, a monk speaks to the assembled pilgrims after a supper of thick pottage and dark, nutty bread. He is elderly, his skin like parchment, his face a map of kindness and ancient wisdom. He speaks of the road that lies ahead, his voice a low, soothing rumble. The Alps are coming, he warns. They are the gates of stone. He tells you the passes are still biting cold, even in summer, and that the weather can turn from sun to blinding snow in the time it takes to say a prayer. But he speaks of the hospices, the small stone shelters in the high clouds where monks have dedicated their lives to pulling weary travelers from the drifts. He speaks of Italy, the land of marble and light that waits on the other side. Of Rome, the eternal city, where the bones of Peter and Paul rest in the dark earth. He speaks of the great southern ports, Bari and Brindisi, where the massive timber ships wait to carry the faithful across the Great Sea. And finally, he speaks of Jerusalem itself. He describes the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the heavy scent of myrrh, the Via Dolorosa, where the very stones bear the weight of the cross. He speaks of the Jordan River, where the water is as soft as silk. You listen with every fiber of your being. This is why your feet are bloodied. This is why you left the hearth. This is the destination that pulls you forward like a lodestone draws iron, a golden light at the end of a very long tunnel. That night, you sleep with a profound sense of safety, the monks' chanting still echoing faintly in your mind. When you wake, the air is cold, but your spirit is warm. You are ready to walk again. Part 4. The mountains. The Alps rise like a jagged wall against the southern sky, a barrier between the world you knew and the world you seek. At first, they are nothing more than a distant line on the horizon, a soft, hazy blue-gray that looks more like a bank of stationary clouds than solid earth. But day by day, as you press forward, they grow. They expand until they fill your entire field of vision, becoming larger, more solid, and more daunting with every mile. You have never seen mountains like these. Back in your village, there were hills, gentle, rolling rises carpeted in clover and hay. But these are the bones of the earth laid bare. They are colossal cathedrals of granite, crowned with brilliant, blinding white snow, even in the heart of summer. Their peaks are lost in a swirling dance of gray clouds, as if the mountains themselves are holding up the very floor of heaven. The roads, if you can even call these narrow, rocky tracks roads, grow agonizingly steep. Every step is a negotiation with gravity. Your legs, already hardened by weeks of walking, begin to burn with a deep, throbbing heat. Your breath comes in short, ragged gasps as the air grows thinner and sharper, tasting of ice and ancient silence. The lush forests of the lowlands have vanished, replaced by stunted, twisted pines and hardy shrubs that cling to the rocks at impossible angles, survivors of 1,000 storms. It is colder here, a different kind of cold than you've ever felt. It is a cold that lives in the stone. At night, even in the reach of June, the temperature plummets the moment the sun slips behind the peaks. You huddle close to whatever meager fire can be coaxed from damp, resinous wood. You wrap your heavy wool cloak tight around your body, feeling the shivers travel from your toes to your jaw until your teeth chatter in a frantic, rhythmic beat. By dawn, a delicate lace of frost forms on the sparse grass, and the world is a silver-edged dream. You reach the first hospice on a gray, heavy afternoon when your body is screaming for rest. It is the great St. Bernard, or perhaps the Mont Cenis, a simple stone building, low-slung and incredibly solid, built with walls 3 feet thick, to withstand winter storms that would crush a normal house. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of wood smoke and vegetable broth. There is warmth here, real, radiating warmth, and beds. Not just a patch of dirt, but actual wooden frames with fresh straw mattresses that feel, to your exhausted body, like the finest silk. The monks who run this sanctuary are a different breed of men. They are tough, weathered, their faces lined by the high-altitude sun and the biting wind. They speak little, but they radiate a deep, quiet strength that settles the soul. They have chosen this harsh, lonely life for one sacred purpose: the hospitality of the heights. Every winter, they tell you in hushed tones, travelers are swallowed by these mountains, lost in sudden whiteouts, frozen in their tracks, or fallen from paths no wider than a handspan. The monks go out with heavy cloaks and sturdy dogs to search for the missing, pulling the living from the drifts and giving the dead a blessed rest. You stay the night, grateful beyond the capacity for words. In the morning, one of the monks, a man with hands like gnarled oak roots, agrees to guide your small group through the treacherous crown of the pass. He has walked this path thousands of times. He knows every loose stone, every deceptive shadow, every place where the wind likes to push a traveler off balance. He moves with a steady, unhurried grace, his long staff probing the ground ahead like a blind man's finger. The path is terrifying. It is a ribbon of shale and grit clinging to the side of the world. To your left, the mountain rises sheer and indifferent, a wall of cold stone. To your right, there is nothing. Just a dizzying drop so deep that the valley floor is lost in a blue-gray haze. One slip, one moment of wandering thought would mean an end to your journey. You learn not to look down. You focus entirely on the monk's broad, woolen back and on placing your boots exactly, centimeter by centimeter, where his have just stepped. Pierre is ahead of you, his shoulders hunched with concentration. Mathilde is behind. You can hear her breathing, hard and fast, a sound laced with the raw edge of fear. You wanted to reach back, to say something comforting, to tell her it will be all right. But you are too focused on the simple act of survival to spare the breath for speech. Hours pass in this suspended state. Step, breathe. Step, breathe. The air is so thin now, it feels as though you are breathing nothing at all. A cold vacuum in your lungs. Your heart pounds against your ribs like a trapped bird. Despite the biting chill, a line of sweat runs down the center of your back, trapped beneath your tunic. And then, almost without warning, the path begins to widen. The terrifying incline levels out into a small, rocky plateau. The wind, which had been howling through the crags, suddenly softens into a sigh. You are through the worst of it. The monk stops. He turns, leaning on his staff, and a small, knowing smile touches his weathered face. He gestures with one hand toward the horizon. Italia, he says simply. You look. Below you, spread out in the golden wash of the afternoon sun, is a valley that defies description. It is a world of emerald green and burnished gold, shimmering with heat and light. After the harsh, monochrome gray of the high peaks, it looks impossibly beautiful. A land of milk and honey. This is the southern side of the world's Great Wall. This is the gateway to the Mediterranean. You want to weep with the sheer, overwhelming relief of it. You want to fall to your knees and kiss the warming earth. Instead, you just breathe, in and out. You feel the life moving in your veins. You are alive. You are still alive. That night, at another, humbler hospice nestled in the lower foothills, you sleep the sleep of the utterly exhausted, a deep, heavy slumber that pulls you down like an anchor. Your body aches in places you didn't know could hold pain. Your ankles, your lower back, the very arches of your feet. But as you drift off, the last thought in your mind is a triumphant one. You cross the Alps. The Great Barrier is behind you. The road to the sea is open. Part 5. The Italian Roads. Italy is a revelation, a sudden warm embrace after the jagged hostility of the peaks. Descending the southern slopes, the air undergoes a subtle alchemy. It loses its icy edge and begins to taste of rosemary, dry earth, and wild thyme. After the monochrome world of the high heights, the colors here feel like a divine blessing. The sun is stronger, casting a light so clear it seems to sharpen the edges of the world. Everything grows with a wild, rhythmic abundance. Hillsides draped in grapevines heavy with the small green clusters of young fruit. Groves of ancient olive trees, their gnarled trunks, twisted by centuries, their leaves shimmering silver green whenever the breeze stirs. And the dark, solemn cypress trees, rising like exclamation points towards a heaven that feels all of a sudden much closer. The roads are better here and more mysterious. Some are still paved with massive flat stones, the enduring remnants of the ancient Roman Empire. You are walking upon the Via Francigena, the road from the land of the Franks, a path worn smooth by the passage of millions of souls. Your feet, so accustomed to the shifting mud of the north and the sharp shale of the Alps, almost don't know what to make of these smooth, sun-warmed surfaces. You are walking through layers of history, though your mind is too tired for scholarship. To you, these are simply the roads. But you feel the weight of time beneath your soles. Centuries ago, the iron-shod legions of Caesar marched where you now walk with your wooden staff. Centuries hence, other seekers will follow in your shadow. The roads remember everything, and yet they remember nothing. They are silent witnesses to the rise and fall of kings, yet they yield only to the steady, rhythmic pace of the traveler. Towns are more frequent now, appearing like clusters of white stone against the green hills. You pass through places with strange musical names that lilt on the tongue. Siena, Viterbo, Lucca. Here, the Latin of the church has shifted and softened into the vulgare, a language that flows like water over river stones, all liquid vowels and soft melodic consonants. You do not understand the words the housewives call out from their windows, or the jests the carters exchange, but you find yourself humming along to the cadence. It is the sound of life, vibrant and unhurried. In one town, you encounter a market day. The central square is a riot of color and a cacophony of sound that feels overwhelming after the silence of the mountains. You see vendors under striped awnings selling dyed fabrics of madder red and woad blue, stacks of terracotta pottery, and baskets of spices that make your nose prickle with the sense of the distant east: clove, cinnamon, and pepper. In a corner, fish from the coast gleam like silver blades on beds of mountain ice. You are changing, you realize, as you watch your shadow grow long on the cobblestones. It isn't just your body, though that has been forged into something new. You are leaner now. The soft edges of your village life have been burned away by the sun and the miles. Your skin is the color of polished bronze, and your hands are as tough as the leather of your boots. But something inside is shifting too. You are learning the pilgrim's economy, learning to live with less, to strip away the unnecessary, and to find a profound, quiet joy in the simplest of things. A piece of bread when the hunger gnaws. A sip of cool water from a village fountain when the dust coats your throat. A dry patch of ground to rest your head when the sun sets. These are no longer small things. They are the only things. They are the entire world. The days take on a hazy, dreamy quality. The boundaries between yesterday and tomorrow dissolve into a single, continuous present. Walk, rest, eat, sleep. Sometimes you talk with Pierre and Mathilde about nothing at all. The price of ale or the shape of a cloud. Other times you walk in a shared silence for 6 hours at a stretch. The only sound the rhythmic tack-tack-tack of your staffs. It doesn't matter. You are all bound together by a shared gravity, a singular purpose that is stronger than any language. You pass near Rome, the Urbs Eterna. You do not go inside the walls. You cannot afford the distractions, the city fever, or the risk of losing your way in the labyrinth of its ancient ruins. But you pass close enough to see the massive sun-bleached walls, the distant domes of the basilicas, and the crumbling grandeur of its pagan past. Some of your group leave you here. Their journey ends at the tombs of the apostles Peter and Paul. You say your goodbyes with a solemn nod, wishing them the peace of the martyrs, and then you turn your face back to the south. Always south, toward the great sea. The landscape begins to flatten and widen. The air loses its crispness and grows heavy, thick with the scent of salt and the shimmering weight of the heat. The ground becomes sandy, the grass turning into tough, sea-hardened scrub. You can feel the change in your lungs before you see it with your eyes. One afternoon, as you crest a low sun-baked hill, the horizon suddenly opens up. And there it is, the sea. You have never seen the sea before. To a man from the inland forests of France, it is an impossibility. You stand there, your staff trembling slightly in your hand, staring. It is so vast, so terrifyingly, beautifully vast. It is a sheet of sapphire blue, stretching to the very edge of the world, meeting the pale sky in a shimmering haze of distance. The sun glitters on the moving crests of the water like a million scattered gold coins. For a moment, you forget to breathe. This is the Mare Nostrum, the Mediterranean. It is the blue bridge that connects Europe to the sands of Africa and the holy stones of the Levant. This is the water that Christ's own shadow once fell upon. Tomorrow, you will go down to the harbor. You will bargain with the shipmasters, looking for a place on a Venetian cog or a Genoese galley. But tonight is for the shore. You camp on the beach with a handful of other pilgrims, building a small, crackling fire from silvered driftwood. You eat the last of your provisions, the remains of the cheese, and a crust of bread, while the waves roll in, constant, rhythmic, and eternal. It is a sound older than humanity, older than the Roman roads, older than the saints. You lie on your back in the soft, cooling sand, looking up at the stars. They are the same stars that watch over your mother's house in France. They are the same stars that hung over the Alps. And they are the same stars that, at this very moment, are shining over the golden dome of the Holy Sepulchre and the quiet waters of the Jordan. You are hundreds of leagues from home, a stranger in a strange land. And yet, as the salt spray dampens your cloak, you feel a bone-deep certainty. You are exactly where you need to be. Sleep comes easily, carried on the breath of the tide. The sound of the waves, in and out, becomes your own breathing, the rhythm of the world itself. Part 6. The Sea Voyage. Finding a ship takes 3 long sun-drenched days. You and your small band of travelers move from port to port, perhaps the bustling docks of Genoa or the vast timbered wharves of Venice, asking, negotiating, and pooling your few remaining coins. The air here is thick with the cries of merchants and the smell of roasting chickpeas. Finally, you find a merchant galley, a sturdy, deep-bellied vessel heading to Jaffa with a cargo of fine wool and dark, heavy wine. The captain, a man with skin like cured leather and eyes the color of the storm, agrees to take a contingent of pilgrims, for a price, of course. It takes nearly all your remaining money, the coins you've guarded since the frost of France. But what choice is there? You did not cross the spine of the world to turn back at the water's edge. The ship is smaller than you had imagined in your dreams. It is a single-masted vessel with a massive square sail of heavy canvas and long rhythmic oars along both sides, for those moments when the Mediterranean wind fails and the world turns to glass. The deck is a chaotic landscape of stacked crates, coiled hemp ropes, and now, pilgrims. There are perhaps 30 of you making the crossing, pressed together in whatever narrow spaces remain between the cargo and the crew. You board on a bright, crystalline morning. The sun is already hot, and the sea is a calm, glittering expanse of turquoise. The ship possesses a scent all its own, a heady, pungent mixture of salt, thick pine tar, old fish, and the scent of too many bodies in too small a space. You find a spot near the stern, claiming a section of the sun-bleached deck barely wide enough to lie down. You settle in, feeling the wood vibrate beneath you as the crew prepares for departure. The sailors cast off the heavy lines, their rhythmic chants echoing across the harbor. The ship drifts away from the stone dock, at first sluggishly, then catches the breath of the sea. The great sail fills with a sudden crack like a distant roll of thunder. And suddenly, you are moving. You are gliding across the water with a smooth, strange motion, a swaying, liquid grace that makes your stomach rise and fall with the breath of the deep. You've never felt anything like this. The solid, predictable earth you've walked for months is gone. Now there is only the water, only this thin wooden shell of oak and pitch between you and the unfathomable depths. For the first few hours, it is almost pleasant, a lullaby of motion. The sway is gentle, the sun a warm weight on your shoulders. You lean over the side and trail your hand in the water, marveling at its shocking coolness and its clarity. Flying fish, like slivers of animated silver, burst from the white foam of the wake, their fins catching the light for a fleeting second before they vanish back into the blue. But as the coast fades to a thin, charcoal line, the wind picks up. The waves grow larger, their crests beginning to curl with white foam. The ship begins to pitch and roll, climbing each swelling hill of water and sliding down the other side with a sickening lurch. Your stomach, so accustomed to the steady rhythm of the road, rebels. You lean over the rail, your knuckles white as you grip the wood, and lose what little breakfast you had to the hungry waves. You are not alone in your suffering. Half the pilgrims are draped over the sides or curled in miserable heaps upon the deck. The sailors move among you with the easy rolling gait of men who have forgotten what it feels like to stand on dry land. They laugh, not with cruelty, but with the weathered humor of those who have seen this 1,000 times. One of them, A man with a silver hoop in his ear offers you a bit of ancient sea wisdom. Look to the horizon, Pilgrim. Keep your eyes on the line where the sky meets the water. Keep something in your belly, even if the thought of it is a burden. And sleep. Sleep is the only cure for the sea fever. The days at sea begin to blur together into a single, shifting tapestry. Sometimes the water is as calm as a cathedral floor, a vast blue mirror reflecting the passage of the clouds. Other times, the sirocco or the mistral blows up from nowhere, turning the sea dark, angry, and mountainous. The waves lift the ship toward the heavens, and then drop it into deep, watery valleys with heart-stopping plunges. You cling to the rigging drenched by the freezing salt spray, praying to St. Nicholas and every other saint of the sea you can name, your voice lost in the howling of the wind. But at night, when the sea relents and the world grows still, the beauty of the voyage steals your very breath. The stars are impossibly bright, undimmed by the fires of any city or village. They look like diamonds scattered on a cloth of black velvet. The water is dark, almost ink black, but it is luminous. As the ship cuts through the swells, the wake glows with a ghostly blue-green light. The bioluminescence that the sailors say is the breath of the sea spirits. It is as if the stars have fallen into the water and are swirling around the hull. You sleep poorly, when you sleep at all. The deck is hard as iron, your cloak is perpetually damp with salt, and the rhythmic creaking of the ship's timbers never ceases. Creak, groan, splash. It is the sound of the ship talking to the water. But despite the discomfort, a quiet fire burns in your chest. Each day, each dawn, each wave carries you a few leagues closer to the Holy Land. That knowledge is enough to sustain you. Dolphins appear one morning, dozens of them, a silver escort racing alongside the hull. They leap and dive with a sense of pure, contagious joy. Their sleek bodies slicing through the water with effortless power. The pilgrims crowd the rails, pointing and laughing, their weary faces lit with wonder. Even the captain smiles. It is a common belief that dolphins are a blessed sign, protectors of those who travel the deep. You choose to believe this with your whole heart. You feel that the sea itself is finally welcoming you. Land appears on the 10th day. At first, it is nothing more than a low, bruised darkness on the horizon, easily mistaken for a cloud. But as the sun climbs, it resolves into solid shapes. The rugged line of hills, the glint of stone buildings, and finally, the sun-bleached white walls of a city. It's the holy city of Jaffa, the ancient port of arrival. You stand at the rail, your hands gripping the salt-crusted wood so tight they ache. You stare until your eyes burn. After all the months of walking, all the thousands of miles, all of the hunger, the cold of the Alps, and the sickness of the sea, you are here. Jerusalem is still a journey of days through the inland hills. But this is the soil of the Holy Land. The very air you are breathing, thick with the scent of dust and jasmine, is the air that Christ once breathed. Tears run down your sun-bronzed face, carving tracks through the salt and the grime of the voyage. You do not wipe them away. You let them fall onto the wooden deck. Let them mark the end of the long exile. The ship glides into the harbor, the oars splashing in a final tired rhythm. Sailors scramble aloft to lower the sail, while others guide the vessel toward the stone dock. The city rises around you in a dizzying array of styles: white stone arches, the swaying fronds of palm trees, and the towers of churches and mosques standing side by side, in a way you have never seen in France. The gangplank drops with a heavy thud. One by one, the pilgrims disembark, their legs trembling as they adjust to the stillness of the earth. You step onto the soil, and it feels different. It feels sacred. It feels like home, even though you have never stood here in all your life. You do not walk away immediately. Instead, you fall to your knees in the warm, golden dust and kiss the ground. It tastes of salt, of parched earth, and of the long-awaited arrival. You have reached the shore of the world. Part 7. The Road to Jerusalem. Jaffa is a storm of the senses, a beautiful, terrifying chaos. The port city breathes with a dozen different lungs, filled with the sharp glottal sounds of languages you have never heard in the quiet valleys of France. You hear the flowing Arabic of the locals, the rhythmic Greek of the merchants, the melodic Armenian of the mountain traders, and countless other tongues that sound to your ears like the rustle of dry leaves or the clatter of stones. The Crusader conquest of the city is a fresh, raw thing, barely a year old, and the city is still trembling, adjusting its ancient bones to the rule of the new Christian lords. Frankish knights, their surcoats emblazoned with the cross, patrol the narrow, winding streets. Their chainmail and iron helmets must be an unbearable weight in this searing climate. You see the sweat glistening on their brows as they maintain a stern, watchful peace. In the markets, the air is thick with the scent of cumin, roasting lamb, and sun-rotted fruit. Merchants haggle with a fierce, musical intensity. You move among them like a ghost, a dazed pilgrim overwhelmed by the shimmering heat and the sheer, vibrant strangeness of the Levant. You learn quickly that the final leg of the journey cannot be taken alone. To walk the road to Jerusalem without a caravan is to invite a quick end. The rugged hills of Judea are still haunted by bands of displaced Saracen fighters, desperate bandits who have no regard for a traveler's vows, and lean, hungry predators. Safety is found only in numbers, under the shadow of the sword. It takes 2 days to organize your passage. Finally, you are grouped with a diverse company of 50 souls, pilgrims from every corner of Europe, and a dozen armed protectors. Some are Frankish knights who have traded their homes in the West for a life in the new Latin kingdom. Others are local Eastern Christians, men who know the secret paths and the hidden springs. You set out at the first light of dawn on the 3rd day, the air briefly cool before the sun begins its slow, golden climb. The landscape is a revelation of stone and light, utterly unlike the lush, damp green of your homeland. Here, the earth is a pale, sun-bleached gold, crumbling and ancient. Olive trees, their trunks gnarled into fantastic shapes by centuries of wind, and towering date palms offer occasional precious islands of shade. The sun is a physical weight, a heavy, relentless pressure against your back. You learn from the locals to wrap your wool cloak over your head and shoulders, creating a small, private tent of shade. It is a lesson in humility. The Frankish ways of the north are no match for the wisdom of the desert. The road climbs steadily, a white ribbon of dust winding higher into the Judean highlands. Jerusalem, the guides tell you, sits upon a throne of hills, higher and cooler than the humid coast. You walk through vast, silent valleys where shepherds in flowing robes watch their flocks, just as they did in the time of the patriarchs. You pass villages of flat-roofed stone buildings that seem to grow directly out of the hillsides. Some are marked with the sign of the cross, their bells chiming a welcome. Others are inhabited by those of the old faith, who watch your iron-guarded caravan pass with wary, unreadable eyes. The very land feels heavy with memory. Every stone under your boot, every dry creek bed, has witnessed the unfolding of 1,000 years. You realize you are treading on the stage of the divine. Abraham walked these ridges. David looked upon these same valleys. Solomon built his glory here. And Christ. The realization hits you with a fresh wave of awe. Christ walked these very roads. He felt this same sun on his neck. He looked at these exact, jagged horizons. You try to imagine him. You try to see him in the shimmering heat haze ahead, sandaled feet raising small clouds of white dust. A man of sorrows, teaching in parables that grew from this very soil. The veil between the year 1100 and the time of the apostles feels impossibly thin, like a piece of worn parchment. On the 2nd day inland, the caravan halts at a place the guides call Emmaus. It is the hallowed ground where the risen Christ appeared to 2 of his disciples, unrecognized until the breaking of the bread. You stop at a small, cool stone church built over the site. Inside, the world changes. The roar of the wind and the glare of the sun are replaced by a profound, incense-scented silence. You kneel on the cold floor, pressing your forehead against the ancient stone. You are overcome by a tide of emotion, a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and a holiness so dense it feels like water. You do not pray for things. You simply exist in the presence of the mystery. The road continues its upward spiral. The air does grow thinner and cooler, a mercy from God. At night, the caravan camps in the open, the guards standing as dark silhouettes against the moon. The fires are built small, more for the comfort of the light than for warmth. You lie on the hard earth, your staff by your side, and look up. The stars here are enormous, hanging low and heavy like ripe fruit. These are the same stars that guided the Magi across the wastes. The same stars that look down on the stable in Bethlehem, which lies just over the next ridge. On the third day, in the golden hour of the late afternoon, the lead guide suddenly halts. He raises his staff and points toward a distant, high plateau. "Jerusalem," he says. His voice is a low, reverent rasp. You look. At first, your eyes see only more hills, more pale limestone. But then, as the slanting sunlight hits the horizon at a certain angle, the city resolves. You see the massive, honey-colored walls. You see the square towers of the citadel. You see the great domes catching the fire of the setting sun. Jerusalem, the holy city. Your heart seems to stop in your chest, then begins to gallop with a frantic, joyful pace. This is it. The destination of every footstep since you left your mother's gate. The center of the world. The navel of the earth. The place where the ladder of heaven touches the dust of the ground. The caravan does not enter. Protocol dictates that you camp outside the walls tonight, near the northern gate. The guides say it is more practical. To enter a city of such density and tension at dusk is to court trouble. But you do not care. You cannot stop staring as you walk those final miles. Jerusalem. The name is a hum in your blood. Yerushalayim. The city of peace, whose walls have been washed in the blood of 100 sieges. That night, camped in the long shadow of the walls, sleep is an impossibility. You are too vibrantly awake, too overwhelmed by the proximity of the sacred. You are aware that tomorrow, on the next rising of the sun, you will walk through those gates. You will enter the city where the King of Kings died and where the stone was rolled away. Around you, the camp is a tapestry of quiet devotion. Some pilgrims are praying aloud in Latin, their voices a low drone. Others sit in the shadows, weeping quietly with the sheer weight of arrival. One woman, perhaps from the far north, begins to sing a hymn. You do not know her language, but the melody is haunting and ethereal. It sounds like the wind moving through a cathedral. The stars wheel in their slow, majestic circles overhead. The massive city walls stand dark and silent against the velvet sky, a fortress of faith. You sit wrapped in your cloak, your hands trembling slightly as you wait for the first gray light of dawn. The journey of the body is almost over. The journey of the soul is about to begin. Part 8. Jerusalem. The gates of the holy city open at the first tentative touch of dawn. Your caravan, which has been your traveling family for these final miles, moves forward with a slow, heavy momentum. You join a river of humanity waiting at the threshold, fellow pilgrims from the north, weary merchants with spice-laden camels, and local families returning from the hills. The gates themselves, the Jaffa Gate, or perhaps the Gate of the Column, are massive and ancient, their stones worn smooth by centuries of arrivals. They are flanked by soaring towers where Frankish guards watch with narrow, careful eyes, their spear points catching the first glint of the rising sun. You pass through the archway. The walls here are immense, 15 feet of solid, sun-hardened stone. For a few heartbeats, you are enveloped in a deep, cool shadow, a tunnel of stone where the air smells of damp earth and old iron. Then you emerge into the city itself, and the world explodes into life. It is overwhelming. Jerusalem is a labyrinth of the soul. The streets wind in every direction, narrow and steep, carved into the very limestone of the hill. They are lined with buildings of pale stone that press so close together they seem to lean into one another, blocking out all but a sliver of the blue sky. The air is a thick tapestry of sound. Voices calling out in a dozen shifting languages. The harsh, guttural commands of the knights, the musical lilt of Arabic, the chanting of monks. You hear the rhythmic clang, clang, clang of a blacksmith's hammer echoing from a dark forge, and from a distant minaret, the mournful melodic cry of a muezzin. In the year of 1100, the city is a fragile mosaic. Muslims and Jews still walk these streets, living in an uneasy, watchful silence alongside their new Christian rulers. And the smells, they are as thick as a physical presence. The warm, yeasty scent of flatbread baking in communal ovens, the sharp, medicinal sting of hyssop and cedar, the overwhelming sweetness of incense drifting from open church doors, and the raw, earthy musk of animals and humanity pressed together in the heat. Your group stays tightly packed, following the guides through the dizzying maze. People press against you on all sides. The world is suddenly very small and very loud. Beggars with weathered faces reach out with pleading hands, and children, as quick as sparrows, dart through the legs of the crowd. A knight in a stark white surcoat, a blood-red cross stitched over his heart, pushes past on a heavy destrier, and the pilgrims scramble into the shadows of the doorways to let him pass. You are led to a pilgrim hospice nestled near the heart of the city, run by the Order of the Hospital of St. John, the Hospitallers. These are men dedicated to a dual life, the sword and the bandage. The hospice is a sanctuary of stone, austere, cool, and incredibly clean. You are assigned a bed in a long vaulted hall with dozens of other travelers. It is an actual bed with a fresh straw mattress and a clean linen sheet. After months of sleeping on mountain shale and salty ship decks, it feels like a luxury fit for a king. But despite the deep, aching fatigue in your marrow, you do not want to rest. Not yet. The magnet that pulled you across a continent is only a few hundred yards away. You want to see the church, the Anastasis, the Holy Sepulchre, the place where the world changed. The guide agrees to lead your group immediately. You walk through the shadowed streets, climbing upward, turning through narrow alleys where the light filters down in dusty shafts. Suddenly, the buildings fall away, and you are standing in a large, stone-paved plaza. Before you rises the church. It is not beautiful in the way a new cathedral in France might be. It is a rugged, scarred, and ancient complex that has been damaged by fire and rebuilt by emperors, its walls bearing the fresh marks of the Crusader siege only a year prior. But it is sacred. You can feel it in the very air. A spiritual density that makes the oxygen feel thick and sweet. It makes the skin on your arms prickle. It is the weight of 2,000 years of tears and hope. The entrance is a bottleneck of the faithful. You wait your turn, standing in the sun, until you finally step through the great wooden doors and into the dimness. The interior is a cathedral of shadows, lit by the flickering orange glow of thousands of beeswax candles. The air is a heavy cloud of frankincense and the scent of cold, ancient stone. Processions of pilgrims move with a slow, hypnotic grace, their bare feet whispering against the floor. You see people from lands you've never heard of, all of them touching the walls, kissing the stones, and praying in a soft, melodic multitude of whispers. Your guide leads you through the sacred topography. There is so much to absorb, too much for a single mind. You kneel at the stone of anointing, where the traditions say Christ's body was prepared with myrrh and aloes. You press your lips to the cool, polished marble, and for a moment, the noise of the world vanishes. You climb the steep, narrow stairs to Golgotha, the rock of the skull. You stand on the spot where the cross once stood, and you find you cannot breathe. The weight of the place is a physical pressure on your chest. And then, at last, you find yourself before the edicule, the tomb itself. It stands in the center of the vast rotunda, beneath a soaring dome, where the light of the sun falls in a single golden pillar. It is a small ornate chapel built over the hollowed rock of the original tomb. The line is long, but time has ceased to have meaning. What is another hour of waiting after a half-year of walking? When your turn finally comes, you must bow low to enter the tiny doorway. You move through the first small chamber, and then into the inner sanctum. It is a space of profound, absolute silence. It is tiny, barely large enough for 3 souls to kneel. The tomb itself is a simple, low stone shelf. This is it. This is the end of the road. This is where they laid his broken body, and this is where the light of the resurrection first broke upon the world. You fall to your knees. You cannot speak. You cannot even form a prayer in your mind. You are beyond words, beyond the need for thought. You simply are. You are present. You are a pilgrim who has found the center of the circle. You feel a peace so deep, it feels like sleep, a stillness that goes all the way down to the soul. How long you stay in that tiny candlelit room, you do not know. Someone, a monk with a gentle hand, touches your shoulder to remind you that others are waiting in the dark. You nod, your eyes wet, and stumble out into the light of the church. The rest of the day passes in a golden, exhausted blur. You walk the Via Dolorosa, tracing the path of the Passion through the busy markets. You go outside the walls to the Garden of Gethsemane, where ancient silver-leafed olive trees grow from the dust, trees so old and gnarled that you can almost believe they once shaded the brow of Christ himself. Each place is another layer of holiness, another weight upon your heart. By the time the evening shadows stretch across the city, you are back at the hospice. You are exhausted in a way that goes beyond the physical. Your soul is full. It can hold no more. You lie back on your straw mattress, staring up at the vaulted stone ceiling, trying to process the impossible reality of where you are. It is too much, too holy, too heavy, too beautiful. The sounds of the city begin to soften. The bells ring for the final office of the day. The air grows cool. You lie there, feeling the stillness of the holy city seep into your tired limbs. You have walked across the world. You have seen the empty tomb. You have finished the race. Part 9. The Shadow of the Temple and the Road to Bethlehem. The next few days in Jerusalem are spent in a state of waking wonder. You move through the city not as a tourist, but as a seeker, your feet finding their way through the ancient dust. You visit the site of the Temple Mount, the Haram al-Sharif. It is a place of staggering beauty and tension. Today it is occupied by a great mosque with a massive golden dome that catches the sun and reflects it back with a brilliance that hurts the eyes. While the new Christian rulers have claimed the city, the site remains a sanctuary of silence. You cannot enter the inner sanctum, but you stand at the edge of the plaza, looking at the soaring arches and the intricate tiles. The guides speak in hushed tones of the second temple that once stood here, the place where a young Christ taught the elders, and where he later overturned the tables of the money changers in a flash of holy fire. You imagine the ghosts of those ancient columns beneath the current stones, layers of prayer stacked one upon the other. You walk to the Pool of Bethesda, situated near the Sheep Gate. It is mostly dry now, a deep limestone basin where weeds grow between the cracks, but you can still see the weathered remains of the 5 porticos. You sit on a fallen capital, tracing the carvings with your fingers, imagining the stirrings of the water and the paralytic man who found his strength here. The air is still and hot, and the only sound is the dry rustle of a lizard darting across the rocks. Then, you visit the Church of St. Anne, the site of the home of Mary's mother. The church is a masterpiece of Crusader architecture, stark, soaring, and mathematically perfect. You stand in the nave and listen as a group of pilgrims from the distant north begins to sing a plain chant. The acoustics are so perfect that the notes don't just echo. They seem to hang in the air, vibrating against the stone walls long after the singers have stopped. The sound wraps around you like a cool silk shroud, lifting the weight of the day from your shoulders. One morning, you join a larger party traveling south to Bethlehem. The road is a few miles of rugged, sun-baked earth, but it feels like a journey through time itself. Because of the danger of raiders, you travel with armed escorts, their shields clinking rhythmically against their saddles. The landscape is a pastoral dream. Rolling hills, dotted with the silver gray of olive groves and the white specks of sheep. You see shepherds standing motionless on the ridges, leaning on staffs just like yours, watching their flocks with a timeless patience. It is exactly as it must have been 2,000 years ago. The world here hasn't moved. It has only breathed. Bethlehem is smaller than Jerusalem, a quiet town of white stone nestled among the hills. At its heart lies the Church of the Nativity. To enter, you must perform an act of physical humility. The door of humility is tiny, a low opening in the massive stone wall. It was made this way centuries ago to prevent marauders from riding their horses into the sanctuary. But for you, it is a final bow before the mystery. You stoop low, feeling the cool breath of the interior on your face as you step inside. The church is a forest of ancient columns, the floor covered in intricate mosaics that are already centuries old. Great silver lamps hang from long dark chains, their small flames dancing and casting flickering shadows of saints against the frescoes. You are led down a set of narrow stone steps, worn smooth and slippery by the feet of millions, into the grotto, the small dark cave beneath the high altar. The air in the cave is thick and warm, smelling of ancient wax and damp earth. A silver star set into the floor marks the spot where tradition says the Virgin Mary gave birth. You kneel there, the stone hard against your knees, and place your hand upon the cold floor. You think about beginnings, how the entire world changed because of what happened in this small, cramped, lightless place. God made flesh in the most humble circumstances imaginable, amidst the scent of hay and the breath of beasts. You feel a profound sense of smallness, a shedding of pride that is deeply peaceful. You stay for hours, lost in the rhythm of your own breathing, simply being present in the silence. When you finally emerge, the sun is a bruised purple and gold, sinking behind the Judean hills. You watch the shepherds below the town driving their flocks toward the folds for the night. Their long melodic calls echo across the valleys, a sound that could belong to any century. It feels as though the night the angels appeared is only a heartbeat away. Back in the holy city, your life falls into a sacred routine. Every morning you rise before the sun to attend prayers at the Holy Sepulchre. You spend your days visiting the smaller shrines, the tomb of the Virgin, the grotto on the Mount of Olives, absorbing every texture, every smell of jasmine and dust, trying to carve these images into your mind so they can never be forgotten. Evenings are spent at the hospice, sitting on wooden benches and sharing bowls of lentil pottage with strangers who have become brothers. You meet a German noble, his fine silk tunic now ragged and stained, doing penance for a secret burden he carries in his eyes. You speak with a Spanish woman who has been on the road for 2 years, her face a map of the sun. You listen to an English monk describe his plan to join a monastery in the desert, seeking a life of absolute silence. Each person is a thread in the great pilgrimage, each driven by a different hunger, yet all fed by the same stone. The week passes like a dream, a slow, golden suspension of time. You are exhausted, yes, but it is a good exhaustion. You feel a sense of completion, as if the jagged edges of your soul have been smoothed by the journey. You have fulfilled the vow. You have walked the earth. But there is one final destination, the Jordan River. It is a day's journey to the east, through a wilderness that the guides describe with a note of genuine fear. The desert there is a place of jagged canyons and shimmering heat, where Saracen raiders still strike from the shadows. But a large, well-guarded company is forming at the eastern gate, and you know your journey will not be complete until you touch the water where the story began. The journey from Jerusalem to the Jordan River is a trial by fire. It is hot, dusty, and taut, with a tension that hums in the air like an angry hornet. Everyone in the company is on high alert, their eyes scouring the jagged, red rock canyons of the Judean wilderness for the slightest flicker of movement. This is the way of blood, a road where the silence of the desert often hides the shadows of raiders. But you press on, the sun a white-hot coin in the sky, until the late afternoon of the first day. You crest a final scorched ridge, and there, as if by a miracle, the world changes. Below you lies the Jordan Valley, a vibrant emerald ribbon of life, defying the vast brown reaches of the desert. At its heart is the river itself. It is not the wide blue majesty you might have imagined. It is narrow, winding, and muddy, its waters thick with the silt of the earth. Yet, as you look upon it, you feel a reverence that makes your knees weak. This is the most sacred water in the world. You descend to the river's edge, where the reeds sway in the humid breeze. The water is warm and heavy with sediment. Without hesitation, the pilgrims around you wade in fully clothed, men in their tunics, women in their veils, dunking themselves beneath the surface. Some are weeping with a quiet, broken joy. Others are laughing at the sheer, cooling mercy of it. You follow them, letting the silty water close over your head. In the muffled silence beneath the surface, the world of roads and bandits vanishes. You feel the river wash over your skin, over your scars, over your very soul. This is the same water, the same ancient flow, where John the Baptist stood. The place where the heavens opened and the Spirit descended like a dove. You surface, gasping for air, feeling as though the person who began this journey has been left at the bottom of the river. You are reborn. That night, camping on the banks where the frogs sing a rhythmic chorus, you lie under more stars than you have ever seen. Because you are at the lowest point on the face of the earth, the sky feels impossibly high and vast. The Milky Way is a river of light flowing directly overhead, a celestial mirror to the Jordan. To the south, the salt-heavy air of the Dead Sea drifts toward you. You have never felt more alive, or more certain that this pilgrimage was the singular thing your soul required to be whole. Part 10. The Long Road Home. Leaving Jerusalem is an ache you did not expect. You have only been within those golden walls for 2 weeks, but the city has woven itself into your spirit. The scent of its incense, the sound of its bells, and the very grit of its streets have become a part of you. As you walk out through the gates, the thought of leaving feels like a physical tearing, a part of your heart remaining behind in the shadow of the Holy Sepulchre. But the reality of the world calls. Your silver is spent, your bread is gone, and the hospices must make room for the next tide of seekers. You have a life waiting for you in the cold north, a family who has likely marked every moon with a prayer for your return, a village that has existed without you for 7 long months. You join a caravan heading back toward the coast. This journey over the Judean hills feels different than the arrival. You find yourself walking backward at times, memorizing the silhouette of the city against the sky. You watch the golden dome and the gray walls until they become mere specks. And then you crest a ridge, and Jerusalem vanishes. Ahead lies only the road and the long, salt-scented horizon of the sea. At Jaffa, the port is a frantic hive of activity. You find a ship, a heavy timbered cog, packed with pilgrims desperate to cross the Mediterranean before the summer heat turns into the treacherous autumn gales. The voyage back is a nightmare of gray water and howling winds. Storms chase the ship across the sea, waves rising like mountains of charcoal that threaten to swallow your wooden world whole. You spend those 12 days in a state of constant prayer, bargaining with the saints, promising a lifetime of devotion. If only you might see the solid earth of Italy once more. God is merciful. The ship limps into port, its sails tattered and its hull leaking. But it holds. You disembark on shaking legs and kiss the soil of the West. The journey back through Italy is a test of endurance. You are tired now, not the temporary tiredness of a long day, but a bone-deep exhaustion that sleep cannot touch. Your boots are held together by twine and hope. Your cloak is a mosaic of patches. Your body is lean, your skin leathered, and you carry the permanent marks of the road. A hitch in your stride from a mountain fall, a scar from a campfire spark. You find yourself traveling alone for long stretches now. Pierre has remained in the east, his heart taken by the new order of the temple. Mathilde, the brave soul who walked beside you for 1,000 miles, never left Jaffa. The fever took her before she could see the sea. You wept for her in the Italian dust, realizing that on the road, a companionship of months can be deeper than a friendship of years. As you head north, you meet new pilgrims heading south. You see the fire in their eyes, the same hunger you once carried. You trade information with them like precious gold. Which wells are sweet, which lords are greedy, which hospices offer a thick pottage. You bless them, and you continue toward the cold. The Alps loom again, a white and jagged memory. Knowing the danger of the passes somehow makes the crossing harder. You know exactly how thin the air will be, and how narrow the shale paths are. But you take it one step at a time, your breath hitching in the frost, until the peaks are behind you. Finally, France. The landscape shifts back into the soft, damp greens of your childhood. The language around you is no longer a musical mystery, but the familiar tongue of your people. Autumn has arrived in the north. The leaves are a riot of gold and russet, and there is a crisp, sharp chill in the morning air. You walk with a new urgency, driven by the scent of wood smoke and the knowledge that the roads will soon turn to impassable mud. The villages you pass look smaller than you remember. The churches look humbler. You have touched the stones of the Holy Sepulchre. You have walked the Via Dolorosa. To your changed eyes, the world you left behind seems mundane, yet its familiarity is a comfort that settles into your chest like a warm coal. 2 days from home, you pass through a village where the baker recognizes your face. She drops her tray, the scent of fresh rye filling the air. "We thought the earth had swallowed you," she whispers, crossing herself. "It has been 9 months. 9 months. The time it takes for a life to be formed. And as you walk that final day, you realize that is exactly what has happened. The person who left in the spring died on the road, and a pilgrim has been born in their place. Finally, on a gray, misty October morning, you crest the final hill above your own valley. The mist clings to the apple trees, and the smell of your own earth rises to meet you. There, nestled in the fold of the hills, is the thatched roof of your home. You are no longer a traveler. You are a pilgrim returned. Part 11. Homecoming and reflection. The village looks exactly the same, yet it feels fundamentally altered, as if you are viewing a familiar painting through a new pane of glass. There is the stone tower of the church, its bell silent in the morning mist. There is the mill by the stream, the steady thwack slap of the wheel, the only pulse in the valley. The houses are clustered together like sheep, seeking warmth, plumes of blue wood smoke rising straight and true from their thatched hearths. Even the apple trees are exactly as you left them, though they are skeletons now, their fruit long harvested, their dark branches etched like ink against the pale, indifferent autumn sky. You stand at the crest of the hill for a long, breathless moment. Your staff, which has become a third limb, a companion through 3,000 miles of dust, is planted firmly in the earth. 9 months ago, when you stood on this very spot, this village was the beginning and the end of your understanding. It was your entire world. Now, your eyes have held the sight of the limestone Alps, the turquoise expanse of the Mediterranean, the golden domes of the east, and the very tomb of the Savior. This valley is small, so very small, and yet it is home. It is the soil from which you were formed, and the place where you finally belong. You begin the descent slowly, your legs finding the rhythm of the path one last time. A dog barks, old Rufus or a hound like him, recognizing the scent of your stride before any human eye can pierce the mist. Then, a child's voice cuts through the air, sharp and bright. They run, shouting your name, a herald of the impossible. Doors creak open. Figures emerge from the fields, dropping their scythes. And then, suddenly, you are no longer a solitary traveler. You are the center of a storm of humanity. Your mother's face is a mask of weeping joy, her hands trembling as they touch your sunburned cheeks. Your father grips your shoulders with a strength that belies his years, his silence more profound than any shout. Your siblings crowd close, touching your cloak as if it were a relic. Everyone talks at once, their voices a blurred cacophony of relief. They tell you that you look thinner, that the soft edges of your youth have been replaced by the hard, lean angles of the road. They say you look taller, though it is only that you carry yourself with a new, quiet gravity. You are different. You are changed. Yes, you have changed. How could a man walk to the center of the world and back, and remain the person he was? That evening, the air in your small home is thick with the scent of a celebratory stew and the heat of 20 bodies. Half the village has crowded onto the benches and the floor. They are hungry for stories. They want to know the weight of the air in the Holy Land and the color of the sea. You try to tell them. You search for words that don't exist in your simple tongue. How do you describe the bone-shaking terror of a mountain pass where the clouds live? How do you explain the smell of Jerusalem, that mixture of ancient dust, jasmine, and divinity? How do you convey the heavy, electric silence of the Holy Sepulchre? You show them the physical proof of your exile. You unpin the scallop shell from your cloak, the white, ribbed symbol of your vow. You pass around a small, wax-sealed vial of water from the Jordan, its silt settled at the bottom like a secret. You give your mother a single dried flower from the Garden of Gethsemane, its petals as fragile as a prayer. You show them the palm frond from Jericho, now brittle and gold. But as the fire dies down and the villagers begin to drift back to their own beds, you realize the true pilgrimage is not something that can be held in the hand. It is not in the water or the wood. It is the way your soul has been hammered and refashioned by the months of walking. It is the patience you found in the desert. It is the courage you found in the storm. Father Anselm stays late to hear your confession. You speak of the journey in the flickering orange light of the hearth. You tell him of the moments your faith faltered, the nights in the Alps when you cursed the cold, and the days at sea when you feared God had forgotten you. He listens, his head bowed, then offers the words of absolution. When he finishes, he looks at you with a curious, gentle light in his eyes. He asks if it was worth the price. You think of Mathilde's lonely grave in Jaffa. You think of Pierre, now a soldier monk in a distant land. You think of your empty purse and your aching joints. Yes, you whisper, yes, it was worth it. Because you have seen the horizon move. You have proven that faith is not a stagnant thing found only in a pew. It is a movement. It is the act of putting one foot in front of the other when the world tells you to turn back. You have been transformed, not by a flash of lightning, but by the slow, grinding mercy of the road. The weeks turn into months, and winter wraps the valley in a silver-white shroud. You fall back into the ancient rhythms of the village. There is wood to be split, roofs to be thatched, and animals to be fed. Life continues its eternal cycle, but you notice the change in the quiet moments. You do not complain when the stew is thin or the morning is bitter. You remember the hunger of the hills and the ice of the heights. You pray now with your eyes closed, and you are no longer in a stone church in France. You are back in the dim, incense-heavy air of the Anastasis. In the evenings, the children come to you. Tell us of the sea, they whisper. Tell us of the Golden Gate. And you weave your memories into a tapestry for them. You make them feel the heat of the Judean sun and the spray of the Mediterranean. You plant seeds of wonder in their young minds, showing them that the world is vast and holy and waiting for those with the courage to walk it. One night, the house is silent. You cannot sleep, not from worry, but from a strange, peaceful restlessness. You step outside into the biting October air. The village is buried in snow, the roofs like white pillows under the moon. The sky is a vast, indigo cathedral, and there, flowing overhead, is the Milky Way, the Pilgrim's Way of the stars. You look up and remember the night by the Jordan. Different sky, same stars. Different man, same soul. You think of the pilgrims who are on the road this very night, some shivering in the mountains, some sailing the dark waters, all of them driven by the same light that led you. You whisper a prayer for them, a bridge of words across the miles. You think of Jerusalem, sleeping under these same stars. You will never see those golden walls again. Your body is too tired, and your duties are here. But you do not need to see it. Jerusalem is no longer a destination on a map. It is a landscape within you. It is woven into your bones and your breath. The cold begins to bite through your wool. You turn back toward your door, leaving deep, solitary footprints in the fresh snow. The night is silent. The journey is over. And as you lay your head upon your own pillow, you feel the world breathing with you, steady, rhythmic, and holy in its own quiet way. Sleep comes now, deep, earned, and full of peace. Part 12. The Final Rest. And so, dear traveler, we have reached the end of the road. We have completed the great circle. From the small, mist-shrouded village in France to the sun-scorched stones of Jerusalem and back again, we have walked the length of the world. 9 months of rhythmic footsteps. 9 months of enduring the elements, of believing in the unseen, and of finding the sacred in the mundane. 9 months that have changed everything within you, even as the world around you remains the same. Feel the weight of your body now. You are warm. You are safe. The long miles are behind you, and the staff is leaning against the wall, its work finished. There is a roof above you, sturdy, familiar, and dry. There is a bed beneath you, soft, welcoming, and still. Think of how far you have come to earn this rest. Compare this stillness to those nights on the jagged shale of the Alps, or the swaying, salt-slick decks of the Mediterranean galley, or the parched, restless nights under the desert stars. Your journeying is done. Your breathing is beginning to slow, finding a deep and natural cadence. It is a slow, rhythmic tide, the same rhythm of the sea you crossed, the same rhythm of the wind through the Judean pines. Let that rhythm pull you down now gently, like the soft waves on a summer shore. There is no more road to walk. There are no more horizons to chase. Let the images of the journey begin to soften at the edges. Let them fade, like a dying coal in the hearth. Let the jagged peaks of the mountains dissolve into the mist. Let the glittering expanse of the sea turn into a quiet, dark mirror. Let the golden city on the hill, with all its noise and incense, become a distant, fading glow. These are no longer hardships to endure. They are memories, part of the quiet landscape of your sleeping mind. You have walked so far. Every muscle in your body, every thought in your mind, has earned this surrender. You can rest now. You can let go of the staff. You can let go of the road. As you drift, let your dreams be of holy places, not as goals to be reached, but as sanctuaries where you already dwell. Dream of the long, silver roads and the silent, guiding stars. Dream of a journey completed and a soul that has found its center. The world outside is quiet. The night is soft and velvet dark. The snow is falling silently upon the roof, or the wind is whispering through the trees. But here, inside, there is only peace. You have returned. You have found the end of the path. You are exactly where you need to be. You are home. Sleep well, pilgrim. Sleep well.